Okay, Michelle, roll call.
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum of the board present for the October 16th, 2023 Unified School District Antigo Board of Education meeting. We will move it to item number 2, citizens and delegations. And we have letter A, student representatives report, which tonight we do not have a student representative report. But I just want to report out, Saturday I was at UW Whitewater with our marching band, and they did an absolute wonderful job marching at state competition. They took 6th place, and I think that is awesome because it's been several years since they have competed in competition for marching band at the state level. So they did a great job. Their composite score, the composite highest score was for the color guard, and I think they just did an awesome job. So if we can give a round of applause for all of our marching band students, because their season is over. They did a good job. And next, letter B, we will go to public comment. We have a few people that have signed up. Again, pardon me if I mispronounce a name as we're going through. First person signed up is Bree Kratz. Bree, before you start, let me read some rules for the public. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. You know how it goes. To permit fair and orderly public expression, the board shall provide a period for public participation at every regular meeting of the board and publish rules to govern such participation in board meetings. The presiding officer of each board meeting at which public participation is permitted shall administer the rules of the board for its conduct. The presiding officer shall be guided by the following rules. A, public participation shall be permitted before the board takes official action on any issue of substance. B, attendees must register their intention to participate in the public portion of the meeting upon their arrival at the meeting. C, participants must be recognized by the presiding officer and will be requested to preface their comments by an announcement of their name and group affiliation if and when appropriate. D, each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 5 minutes duration, and we will have those 5 minutes on the screen for all to see. E, no participant may speak more than once on the same topic unless all others who wish to speak on that topic have been heard. F, participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. G, all statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members individually. H, the presiding officer may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement is abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when that person does not observe reasonable decorum. Request the assistance of law enforcement officers in the removal of a disorderly person when that person's conduct interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting, or call for a recess or an adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action. The portion of the meeting during which the participation of the public is invited shall be limited to 60 minutes unless extended by a vote of the board. And when you come to the microphone, to the podium to speak, please speak clearly into the microphone so all can hear. Now, Bree Kratz, thank you.
Hello, my name is Bree Kratz. I was a school counselor and mental health navigator in the Antigo School District from fall of 2017 to August of 2023. I'm here to speak with you about therapy dogs in our schools. There's research of the risks, benefits, and effectiveness of utilizing therapy dogs within the school system. According to Bringing Therapy Dogs to Your School, a practical guide for school administrators and educators, some risks include the district's legal implications and liability, supervision concerns, and allergy concerns. There's also a plethora of research that supports the use of therapy dogs, which far outweigh any risks. These benefits include increased connectedness and confidence and interest, among other things. Research also suggests that the use of therapy dogs in the classroom improves student attitudes towards school and creates positive emotions towards learning. These are things that the USDA has identified as values and goals. Enough about the research, though. I've worked in the school district and saw therapy dogs in action. Previously, I requested Kelly Levesque to bring Nana to the middle school to work with a student who was severely struggling to manage their emotions with their peers. Nana came in and immediately I could see the release of stress lift off the student's shoulders. Nana met with that student a few times, and after one missed meeting with Nana, from the middle of March 23 through the end of the school year, I got to see Nana in action full-time. Nana isn't just there for students who need emotional support. Both staff and students of all academic ability levels, grades, genders, inherent trauma levels, etc., would come by the counseling center to give Nana some love before and during school. Everything in life has risks. When we compare the level of risk to the innumerable amount of benefits that can take place, why are we putting up so many roadblocks? Even if we're told it's to review policy, we can't just stop something positive. Would we stop teaching English completely if there was a policy review for ELA standards? No. During the 22-23 school year, work was done to ensure that having therapy dogs present in our school was following guidelines and board policies. I know that some of you don't like to talk about our previous pupil services director, but I'll tell you this, she jumped the hoops, dotted her I's, and crossed her T's when it came to having therapy dogs present in our schools. In board policy 8390, which speaks directly to therapy dogs, it details 7 requirements that need to be met in order to have a therapy dog in school. Which one of those requirements wasn't met? Which one of those requirements wasn't followed? And what was the process to get that corrected before pausing therapy dogs? My guess is that it's none of them. But if one wasn't being followed and you asked the handler to complete the requirements, it would have been done in less than 24 hours. It's disheartening to know that the requirements could have been met quickly, and yet we've still got a pause on therapy dogs in our schools. On September 25th, I got a personal message stating that therapy dogs were no longer welcome in our school buildings. Since then, there's been a lot of conversation regarding therapy dogs within our community, both in person and also on social media. In response, Glenda sent out an email to staff in the district, which made its way onto social media. An excerpt from that email reads, "I hope that in the future, when decisions are made, we will press pause before playing the telephone game, causing hurt feelings, and dragging students into adult misunderstandings. This is how rumors quickly escalate and create more work to undo the wrong caused by the rumor. We are better than this." I spoke with the handler at the high school. She was provided no reasoning as to why therapy dogs would no longer be allowed in the school setting. When context or explanations aren't given, it's easy to seek help and guidance in trying to understand better. I honestly feel the way this was handled wasn't appropriate. It feels like a blame shift from "I made a potentially rash decision" to "you were wrong and shouldn't have made this a big deal." I hope that situations that arise in the future will be handled with a bit of grace and understanding to those who are directly affected by the decisions made. I'll leave you with a short story. In the fall of 2017, I was so excited to start working in the Antigo School District, in the community that I live in the community that I'm raising my family in. However, one of my very first days working within the school district, I was in tears. I sought out a coworker to help me regulate my emotions and plan how to approach the situation. While I'm an educated adult and can work through my dysregulated emotions, I think about our littlest learners who don't have the tools to regulate their emotions. Therapy dogs are one of the tools we can use to help students at little to no cost to the district. We're here to give our students what they need to be successful. Why on earth would we limit the tools that we're offering to our students? Thank you.
Thank you, Bree.
Thank you, Bree.
Second, we have Kelly Levesque.
Kelly Levesque, school counselor for way too many years. Before that, I was a probation parole agent in Milwaukee. I am kind and caring, but would not necessarily call myself a pushover because of my background. There's usually a story behind every person with a therapy or service dog. This is mine. I watched the therapy dogs enter the high school after the Antigo High School shooting in 2016. The calming effect that those dogs had on the children and my staff was amazing. So amazing that I started researching best breeds to train, best breeds for low allergy, statistics on how much impact they could have. I then started to save so I could afford her, and then in 2020 I could finally buy her. So she's a Bernese Mountain Dog. Bernie Doodle is what they call her. So the poodle is a low allergy. The Bernese Mountain Dog is, I hate talking, I'm so nervous, it's not even funny. And then the Bernese Mountain Dog's a chill farm dog, huge. She's medium sized so that she could go into the elementary schools, and she wasn't gigantic, even though I wanted gigantic. I did not get gigantic. Anyway, so she's a Bernie Doodle, and they're very expensive. Nana has been at the school. Okay, I trained her all on my own for the cost between 2020 and 2021. And there's other districts that are paying to train dogs and bring them into the school. And honestly, when I called other schools to see, their response was, you have a full-time staff member with a trained therapy dog, can we hire her? This is not okay. Nana has been in the school for 2.5 years. This is a proactive and positive technique to helping people. Those who know me know I would not waste my time or anyone else's. I am way too busy. If this was not working, she would not be coming to school. She works very well as all the other therapy dogs. I'll talk about Nana because she's mine, but there's therapy dogs all over the district, and they are amazing. And if they are therapy certified, they are trained, they have insurance, or else they wouldn't have the therapy certification. I will fight for what I believe is best for the students. You hurt the kids by removing the support dogs that they had for the last few years. This is not okay. Some of them look to greet her every morning. And it just makes their day, no matter what kind of stuff they're coming out of during the nights. All you needed to do was send out a passive permission slip, from what I understand, and you have examples of them. So can you send out the passive permission slip and then do whatever you gotta review for the November meeting, please, so we can get her back? That would be awesome. Plus all the other ones that do the reading at the elementary levels and stuff. That would be great. Please reach out to me and ask questions about training, insurance, effects on students, or anything else before making quick decisions that negatively affect the students. Please get them back as quickly as you can. They make many people smile and more calm every day that they are here. I would have said come and observe her before you make decisions, but you can't come and observe her right now. So that's everything that I got.
Sigmund, and you may remember me from the July 17th meeting where I publicly made an open records request to this school board. Tonight, I would like to talk about both transparency and perseverance. But before I begin, I would like to make you all aware of a website I've put up at www.antigotransparencyproject.com. The purpose of this website will be to share all of the documents that I received from my records request for the entire community to browse and read. I have yet to receive any records at this point. I'll get to that in just a moment. But for now, you can submit any helpful tips or whistleblow anything you'd like me to look into or follow up on. There's a form right on the website for that. I'm the only one who can view the information you submit and promise to keep anyone who wants to remain anonymous, anonymous. I've already received several great tips that I'm currently following up on. Now let's talk transparency. It has come to my attention that the recently hired superintendent, Glenda Ubinski, is the one who is responsible for making the motion for tonight's agenda item to cancel all live streaming and recording of these board meetings. My understanding is that she made the request at a recent board retreat on September 16th. If this is true, I find it quite troubling. In the spirit of the transparency that the board members campaigned on, I really hope that the board votes to keep the live stream and resulting recordings of these school board meetings. There are many people in this community who are responsible for child or elderly care, have disabilities, or who work multiple jobs, etc., and can't attend these meetings in person. To cut them out from being able to attend these meetings in whatever way they are able to is wrong. Moving on. It's now been 3 months since I made the open records request for just 3 months of the board's emails and any text and social media posts about board matters. The first piece of information I received from this request was almost a month and a half later, on August 29th, and that was just a breakdown of costs to retrieve the records I requested. I should note, this information came to me from their attorney, not the board or the district itself. The total cost given to me was $8,385 just to begin the process, which included an estimate of 90 hours of time just to retrieve the emails. I've worked in IT for almost 20 years now, and I'm here to tell you how absurd that estimate is. If you recall, my request contained no specific topics, which means it would be a very simple date-based query to retrieve the email information I requested. If whoever you hire to do that work needs some assistance, I'm here to volunteer my time and probably could help them cut that estimate down to about an hour or two at the max. Anyhow, 3 months since the request and almost $8,000 raised by almost 100 members of this community, I have yet to receive a single record that I legally requested. It sounds to me like the transparency you all promised when you were running for the school board is not exactly the priority you claimed it would be. I've also heard some rumblings that board president Danny Pyatt is hoping and has even joked about his desire for me to become frustrated at this process and give up. Well, I'm here tonight to assure him and the rest of you that will not happen under any circumstances. In fact, I'm going to take some advice from a sermon of Danny's that he gave on September 3rd. I quote, "We need to persevere even in the face of adversity." What does persevere mean? Well, let me just give you the dictionary definition. Persevere is to persist in or remain constant to a purpose, idea, or task in the face of obstacles or discouragement. What does it mean to persist? Keep going, not stop. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving in. I'm going all the way. Thank you for that great advice, Danny, and have a good night.
Okay, next we have Paul Grindy.
Hello, my name's Paul Grindy, live at 735 Larissa Lane. Last time I came here, I said I don't want to come. And I wouldn't have come, except for an agenda item tonight, move to terminate all video recordings of the Board of Education. I would have stayed home otherwise. I suspect when you guys joined the board, you joined the board because you felt you had something to contribute, or you had something you wished to accomplish. But then you got on the board and you realized I got contracts to fulfill, state and federal mandates, buildings to maintain, public to deal with, some reasonable, some unreasonable, and laws to follow, and also how you communicate what decisions you make. You can make the right decisions, but if not communicated correctly, it's not accepted well in the community. I really question your desire to communicate. If you have done everything right, as I've been told that you have, you would be falling over yourself to get the information in the public records request so that this goes away. Glenn don't come, I don't come, you have more time to deal with the things that you want to deal with because there are important issues in education. And I don't know of any community that can meet them all. I see an upcoming topic tonight, the superintendent is going to be talking about focus group offerings. Communicate with the community. Help the community understand what's going on, learn what the community wants. That live streaming does a lot to communicate what the board is doing. Get nice reports on what our band is doing. I wasn't aware of that. A lot of people tonight, I expect I'm talking to a lot of them, are hearing that stuff for the first time. Also, with this community has a problem with rumors. That's no news to anybody. Watching the live streaming eliminates that because they see exactly who made the motion, what the motion was, and no, there wasn't a motion about tacos on Tuesdays or Taco Tuesday. You know, you get this kind of rumors. The people that take minutes, I have taken corporate minutes. Sometimes you don't know, and so you got to go back to a recording or a video to see who made the motion or what the wording was. For some of us in the community, the discussion before the motion or the public comments are more important than the motion. Want. So I don't understand why you would want to terminate that. But if you did, I'd recommend you change the motion to whereas the live streaming of board minutes meetings is an important tool for the community members to get accurate, up-to-date information. I move to terminate all video recordings of Board of Education meetings to include live streaming, as we do not want to be held accountable for our actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Next, we have Wayne Gagnon.
Good evening. I'm Wayne Gagnon, former board member, retired teacher. I ran for the school board after serving a couple of times in the spring of 2022. In that time, all I heard the candidates running against me talk about was transparency. I heard that meeting after meeting. The signs you had out there for election said you want to restore trust. I don't think you're going to do that. In July, Julie Sprague resigned after being nothing less than harassed, and you had somebody hired before the signature on her resignation was dry. Now I understand there's a motion on the floor tonight to stop recording and live streaming the board meetings. And you're talking about transparency. You're not going to achieve it through those means. And if you want to remove me for the meeting for what I'm about to say, that's fine. But I just want to call you out for the lying hypocrites you seem to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Last, we have Mike Parizek.
Good evening. I am Mike Parizek. I come here tonight as a CT instructor and Skills USA advisor. Coming here for a little bit of positivity and just some important dates that you need to be aware of coming forward. We plan on coming to some meetings next month to share out a full-blown presentation. But I want everybody here tonight to know that our Fab Lab is open to the community every Thursday night from about 5 to 9 p.m. We have a schedule of events listed on our district website and some specific workshops that are taking place. On November 13th, we're going to be hosting a Skills USA District 3 competition event here at the Antigo High School, and we'll be looking for community involvement. November 16th, we are holding a career fair here at the Antigo High School for our students. December 14th, we are holding the Wurz Greenhouse grand reopening and career and technical education open house. Tonight, we are hosting an FFA alumni meeting downstairs. So just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. We'll be bringing some PowerPoint presentations to a future meeting here next month. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, can you send us in an email all of those dates of upcoming events? I would appreciate that. Thank you so much. Now we will move to item number 3, administrative reports. And for these administrative reports, I will turn this portion of the meeting over to our district administrator, Ms. Ojenski.
So the next section of the agenda is new to the board agenda, and it's just going to be a monthly report from each of the directors. The reports are attached, and we will begin with the Director of Business from Mrs. Fosbender. She is present. If anyone has questions you would like to ask of Mrs. Fosbender and the report she submitted.
Are there any questions from any of the board members for Mrs. Fosbender?
Okay. If not, next we have the Director of Pupil Services and Special Education from Mrs. Burkhan, and she is present if you have any questions about her report.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Burkhan from any board members?
Next, we have the Director of Curriculum and Instruction by Ms. Stutzream, and she is present if you have questions.
How's that geometry class going?
Thank you. If you'll come to the microphone, please.
So, for full transparency, geometry has been a struggle. We have put some things in place, though, and I want to thank Wisconsin Virtual School because they've really helped us out these last couple weeks. So, what we noticed when we got online for geometry was it wasn't just our 12th graders who have a little bit more skill that are doing some of the creative writing classes through them and some of the English classes. We had some lower level like grades, like 10th and 11th graders, some 9th graders doing geometry, and that's been a struggle. So what we learned from it, though, that we need to do a better job prepping our students, because I think we assumed sometimes that our students knew how to manipulate kind of the system that we have and be able to find where all the pieces are for it, and what we realized is that they did not. We've been working with WVS. They've been great. We actually had them come to, like, present on our campus here and walk through with students how to work through the problems. We also have the option to do assessments again, so if a student does fail an assessment or feel like they didn't get the learning they need, they can actually go on and redo the assessment. It's not the same assessment, but the same types of questions regarding those standards, so that their grade might look a certain way right now, but they have that consistency where they can go back and get reteaching and things like that. We have a tutor set up that is 24 hours, and we got our students access so they can always go on and they can, like, screenshot a question that they don't know and send it to the tutor, and that tutor will respond back. We also had them show us some different ways that we could do some virtual back and forth with some of the instructors there. That was really helpful, and we sent that out to families as well. So now we have our kids grouped a little better, we have some better understanding around the system, and we have some opportunities for our students who might not be doing as well currently to get them back up to where they need to be. So that grade, like I said, sometimes you look at the grade on a virtual class and it'll say missing 7 assignments, but it's a self-paced resource and curriculum, so they can continue to do that, and that doesn't mean like at midterm if I'm getting an F. That just means I might be behind a few assignments, but that doesn't mean I can't still turn them in. So I want to make sure everyone knows that, as well as families, that they can continue to work on that. Will help support them, and we have some things in place now within that geometry class that it's working a little bit easier. So we learned a lot of things that we would do differently. Hopefully not a next time, but if there is a next time, that we can set our students up for success a little bit better. But we have some things in place now that we can make sure that we're not going to let those kids fail. And when our teacher does return for the geometry class, that we can help support those students moving forward.
Okay, so just to be clear.
Yep.
You said they have access to tutors 24/7.
There's a 24/7 tutoring that it's like you have to screenshot or write a question, so it's not like you can pop on a Zoom or on a Google Meet, but there's 24 hours tutoring that they can screenshot or they can write a question. Some of our students tend to do work really late at night. I've been hearing from the virtual school. They said like around midnight they're up putting in assignments and things like that. So they can do that option, and they also have the option to go on. All 3 of the teachers through WVS have certain times during the week that they'll actually come on live with the student, and if those times don't work for the student, all they need to do is email one of the instructors and say, could you come on at 5 tonight because I have to work or I have, basketball, but I can make it at 5, and they'll make that Google call then. So there's some options, like even though there's 3 time periods for the teachers, that doesn't mean that's the only time that they can go on and get that face-to-face instruction. So we helped our students work through that as well, because I think some of them thought these are the only times I can go on that Google Meet or that Zoom call to work with my instructor, but they actually can talk to their instructor and find another time that works better for their schedule. So that's been helpful. I think we have had some students who utilize that.
Okay, and do we have, what kind of a person do we have in the classroom? Is it just an aide who is just there to supervise behaviors, or are they supposed to do more?
So it's a retired teacher, and he not only supervises the classroom, but asks questions and things like that. He actually goes on and looks at their grades and can pull some of their grades so that he can be having discussions with the students around like what they're missing or what help they need. And he's working with the students to group them now to make sure that they're, like, if I'm really good at geometry, I might sit next to somebody who might struggle, that if they do have a question, they can just quickly ask me as I'm doing my work. So he is a retired teacher that does support the students within their geometry work.
And did he get some training from WVS on how to help students with the virtual class?
So he did, it came by really quick right at the end of summer. We realized, we were trying to look for a teacher so we could have an in-person classroom teacher. We couldn't find one. We scraped everywhere we could in the surrounding areas with all the programs. And when we found out we couldn't find that, we had to quickly go virtual. We wanted to use RVA, but there was too many students at that time, so we decided that WVS could handle the capacity that we needed for the students, so that's why we chose WVS. And then it was a quick turnaround. So there wasn't a lot of training, which is what I said is that we could have done it better, and we now know better on some of the pieces, but he did get training, and he's in constant communication with the teachers through WVS as well.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yes. Any other questions?
Is there a book, a math book that they, like, I can remember in high school here a long time ago, having a geometry book, and I'd have to go home and read the back. You'd have to read the theorems. Is
Yeah.
that,
So it's
you
a
could do
little
the
bit more
proofs or-
interactive than that. So like if I'm a student and I go on a lesson, I can actually see the content and I can take notes. That's one of the things we weren't doing at the beginning. That is the note-taking that we started implementing, which helped a lot of students. And go through the content. There's some interactive pieces where they actually have to pull some of the shapes and pull some of the lines. There's some videos in there. So as they work through the module, they learn the concept, and then there's assignments within that to kind of see if they are getting it or if they need to go back, and then there's assessment at the end. And that's the assessment. If I didn't do well on that assessment and I needed extra help, I can retake that assessment because it pulls from a bank of questions and not just like, this is the assessment and I take the same one, so I could just cheat and find the answers and put them on there. It pulls from a bank of questions so they can reassess that
so the
standard.
first part is a video lecture on the topic, or
So
no?
it
Or
depends on the module, so it depends on the concept. So you always go, if I was a student, I always go through the module, and there's different steps. So some of the part is I have to read, some of the parts are video, some of it's manipulating the concept and the questions and making sure that I know the concept. So there's all different parts depending on what the concept is. And then they take the assessments and the activities.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
So it's not just like a book that they have to read. There's some interactive pieces, some videos, depending on what module they're on.
So, okay. Separate question. So this is good, Andy, I appreciate the question. When we do these reports, because this isn't agended, can we technically not talk about it because we didn't give 24-hour notice? Or are these reports like general?
It should be based on what's in the report.
I would also ask that the directors give the report rather than just read it and ask questions, because no one in the audience knows what the report says.
So Glenda, you're saying that by rights I shouldn't have asked that question?
I'm saying if there wasn't something in her report about the geometry class, then you shouldn't have asked the question.
I mean, I think it was a
Because it
good
wasn't on
question,
the
but
agenda.
technically not on the agenda.
Correct.
It's-
Great question, and I can put it on next month's.
Hopefully I won't have to ask it
Okay,
again next time.
okay. And if you want to see the modules, we can always let you see the module if you want to see like what it actually looks like to go through a module. I think some of our students, like I said, didn't understand the module piece of it, so they went right to the assessments and then they failed. And they didn't realize there was some teaching aspects that they had to go through, or some honestly didn't want to, so they just quickly clicked through all the modules and then got to the assessment and then realized the modules actually do help and teach you. So it's been working through some of those processes. But I will tell you more next month.
Do you want to do that at a curriculum meeting?
Sure.
Or I mean, I'd be interested to see a module.
Yeah, I can do it at the curriculum committee.
That'd be a great place for that, JD, yeah.
Anything
Any other
else?
questions?
Okay, and next, thank you, Ms. Stutzream. We have the Director of Building Grounds, Mr. Leiderman is here, if you have any questions of him.
I agree with Bobby. You should read it. Did you put anything in it? I didn't click on it yet.
That's
I'm-
kind of the
Or
purpose.
are you trying to, you're trying to
That's-
make
No,
it faster?
I'm going to say, I think it's a good idea that starting next month, since we haven't heard from everybody, and putting Jake on the spot's not a good thing. So I will ask Jake a question. We have a task force meeting this Thursday.
Yes, we have a middle school building tour this Tuesday, tomorrow night, at 6 o'clock. I hope we get a lot of people to attend. And then Thursday night, we do have the whole task force meeting here in the MediaTek with Donovan Group present.
Is that supposed to be the last one prior to what they come up with to come to the board in November? Is that my
Correct.
understanding?
Yes, the hope is that we could create a charge that night, but that is up for discussion at that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
How many people toured the high school
Two,
besides yourself?
correct.
Any other questions for Mr. Leiderman?
Okay.
Okay.
If not, I have my superintendent report, and the first thing is some of the policy work that I've started on with reviewing policies and have found differences in our practices. One was the animals on school property, and notification was not sent to families informing them that we have therapy dogs in our buildings, to give them the opportunity to opt out if students have allergies or a fear of dogs. Mrs. Zaromsky and I spent quite a bit of time with Tim Bannock, our Neola rep, to work on a couple of different policies that will be coming to the board, and the one with the passive permission to be attached in the administrative guideline will be on the November agenda. Next is the bomb threat update. It is still under investigation, so there's not a lot that I can say around the progress that has been made with identifying where the threat came from. But it did provide us an opportunity to have a debrief as an admin team and work on things that we found that maybe weren't as tight as what we would prefer they be. And we worked out a plan to make sure that if this ever does, hopefully it doesn't happen again, we will be able to do things in a much more efficient manner. And next, listening sessions. I've been performing listening sessions at all buildings and have just finished those up. There were 3 questions asked. What is working well? What is one thing I can do as your superintendent to help? And one thing that we can do together to improve your school. They were very well attended at all buildings, and I gained a lot of good information that I will be sharing out to the district and the board as well, identifying themes, not by building, but just overall themes of the 3 questions. And last but not least, we will be offering focus groups. They will begin in November. It's an opportunity for the community to engage with the board and myself, because at public comment, it's only an opportunity for people to speak to the board and the board not to be able to engage with them or answer questions. So this will provide that opportunity for people to come together so that we can work around things in our schools to help move our district forward. Those will be posted on the website so that people will know the location and the time that they will be beginning. They'll be limited to about an hour. The dates that we have selected are November 13th, December 6th, January 25th, February 28th, March 7th, and April 23rd. Questions? Okay, thank you.
So are those listening sessions, is the whole board supposed to attend? I know you sent out an email, and I was just thinking,
Correct.
did I reply to that? And I
No,
don't-
you did not.
No. That means I'm good with any of the meetings.
Yes, there will be certain ones that board members will be present, and all of that will be posted so that the community can see. If there are certain members that they choose to engage with, then that will provide some more transparency around that.
Okay. Yeah.
Did Dean give us any update on when we're gonna do the public records release?
I have not heard anything lately from him on that.
He is slow.
Okay,
That was illegal too, wasn't it? Because that wasn't in the report.
moving on to item number 4, consent agenda. Letter A, approval of agenda, minutes, and financial reports. Request for overnight travel, report of district retirements and resignations, and report of district new hires. I would be looking for a motion, please.
I move the board approve the agenda, minutes from September 18th, 2023, Board of Education meeting, October committee meeting minutes, district retirements and resignations report, report of district new hires, request for overnight travel, financial reports for September 2023, consideration of current bills, check number 7246 through 7284 in the amount of $86,347.87. ACH's number 232400216 through number 232400325 in the amount of $593,144.16 for a total of $679,482.03.
Motion has been made by Catherine. Would you like to speak to your motion?
I would.
The floor is now open for any board member who would wish to speak to the motion on the floor. Bobby?
Well, I believe that the September board meeting minutes are not attached. Unless I'm not seeing them.
That would be my fault.
Sorry.
It's okay, I can do it right now.
Okay. Jill?
That was my question.
Okay. I just want to make let the record, Michelle, reflect that I will recuse myself from the following check summary of October 2023, and that those two check numbers are 232400303, and I have this copied for you, 232400304. I will recuse myself from those two. Handing the record over to Glenda. Any other questions for the consent agenda? All right, you have a motion on the floor. If you are in favor of the motion, you click yes. Opposed, no. Abstaining, 3. Would anybody like to change their vote? Okay, the vote is now closed, and the motion carries. I'm going to ask for a 5-minute recess because we have a board member that cannot get logged into the board docs, and it's very vital that the board members see the information. So 5 minutes, we'll be restarting. If you could put 5 minutes on the screen, please.
Says I don't have internet. And I went out and came back in, and it still said, I don't have internet.
Turn it off and on again.
I'll let. I trust him, I don't trust myself.
Nah, fair.
Anything's possible.
I want you to guess because that's a whole nother 4 or 5 weeks for those kids that are super dependent. It's a long time.
I have a thought.
I don't know what I did. Old school, what can I say? This is a paper.
I can't imagine what it might do with the check printouts.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot.
You'd have a file like this.
When I got on, you guys had 4 docs. So you used to have to make the paper.
Yeah. And there would be an envelope of stuff. And they used to give a lot more and then mail them. For like $13 a package mail. And the journal and the radio station, all the different places.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I spent a whole day at the Xerox machine. It was,
It'll allow me to share.
Can.
It just says I have no internet and brought it up. It says
No internet.
Huh?
I plan on coming tomorrow.
The middle school?
Yeah, it says contact you.
Oh, I bet it was with yes. Okay.
You have that record?
Oh, yes, I do. Yep.
Just to make sure there's not a quorum.
Oh, yeah.
Danny's the only other one.
And one of them was Angie.
I didn't, because I know, I was in this building every day, but that's terrible. Nope.
But I think there were just a few who had,
Middle school, I want to see that. I was in this building every day. Yeah. Thursday?
yeah.
And that's at 6. Yeah, it's 3 nights. So that's 3 days this week.
Well, no, Dustin got it. As of now, it is. Dustin got it going. And he took him like 3 times.
Okay, we'll come back to order. We'll move on to item number 5, new business. Letter A, presentation of student data. Ms. Oginski.
So we will begin with Ms. Stutzream. She will present the district data, and then she will be followed by each of the building principals presenting their student achievement data from our recent FastBridge benchmark assessments.
So FastBridge, just to review, is a universal screener that we use not only to find benchmarks, but also to progress monitor our students.
Can you go a little closer to that mic, please? Thank you.
Yes. Better?
Yes.
Okay. So FastBridge, just to review, is a universal screener that we use to not only find benchmarks like cut scores of where our students need to be, but also to progress monitor growth. And it gives us a lot of great data on both reading and math skills. And we also use it for some social and emotional learning. So we have currently, at the beginning of this school year, gave the FastBridge assessments for A, reading, and A, math. And early reading and early math for our younger grades of 4K and kindergarten. So on the data monitoring report that was presented, so I'll go through some of the data for the district, and then all the principals will come up and talk about the action steps that they are going to utilize in order to close that opportunity gap and to raise our student achievement. So at the top, we are sitting at about 51% of our students performing below proficiency in ELA and 53% in math. So that's kind of where our current standing is, and where we want to get to, obviously, is 100% of our kids passing. So I put on this document some scores from the forward assessment as well, which is the state assessment at the end of last year, just to make sure we have more than one data point, because as we know, FastBridge is one data point in the fall, one in the winter, and one is in the spring. So we don't live and die by that, but it's also great information that helps us formulate how we're going to provide instruction to our students and what intervention that they need. So it's not the only thing that we're looking at. We look at the forward assessments, we look at the formative assessments within the classroom setting, observations, and as we group our students, especially in the younger grades, we always take all of that into account. For example, a teacher said, well, this student is in a intervention, a tier 3, which means most intensive, based on our FastBridge data, but actually is performing a lot higher. So maybe that day we just had a really bad day, or the child didn't understand the assessment. We obviously move that child out of that tier 3 assessment and put that child where they need to be so that we can raise those achievement. We are also looking at our students not only who are below proficiency, but our ones who are proficient or advanced, because as we all know on the state report card, when that comes out, as we move students up bands, they're called performance bands, and we move them to proficiency and then move proficiency to advanced, it actually gives us
us more points on our state report card. So we're always looking to advance our students, not solely focus on the students who struggle. So all of our kids means all of our kids. So as we scroll down and you look at the chart for A reading, you'll notice that in the kind of a brown yellow is their spring data for their cohort. So for example, if I was a kindergartner last year and I'm currently a first grader, that would show up on the grade 1 line at 68 below, which is 56% of their kindergarten year. And then as you go across, you will see the 75% below for first grade, which is their current school year. So it's always good to look spring to spring on data to make sure that we don't just grow within that year, but we're making sure that from last year, where they ended up this year, at the end of this year, is a significant increase. So that's why we wanted to put that spring data on there. So as you're looking, we always want to make sure we're looking at our students who are below proficiency. Again, that doesn't mean we're not focused on our students who are above proficiency. It just means we need to know accurately where we are and the needs that our students have. So as we go through, you'll see early reading listed. That's an early literacy assessment that goes over like letter sounds, letter names, nonsense words, some of those basic phonemic awareness skills and the phonics skills. And once we get into grade 1, we do A reading, which flips into phonics and more of the comprehension pieces, vocabulary, morphology, things like that as we go up in the grades. So you'll see that on the right, on that, the white column are students in each grade level, the percentage of students who are below proficiency. So in 4K, we have 36%, kindergarten 42%, grade 1 75%, second grade we're at 60% below proficiency, third grade, 59%, fourth grade, 46%, fifth grade, 55%, sixth grade, 44%, seventh grade, 50%, eighth grade, 51%, ninth grade, 47%, 10th grade, 46%, and 11th grade, 53%. If you were at the committee meeting, you're going to see some discrepancy in some of the scores. So Fastbridge is part of the company Illuminate, and so Fastbridge and EduClimber are the two programs that we use. And Fastbridge pulls its data into EduClimber, and that's really important so that that data can follow our students. That it's not just that 1 year in Fastbridge and then we lose that data. So if I'm a third grader and I move into fourth grade, they can pull up at the middle school my third grade data through EduClimber. What happened this year is that Fastbridge did not have, and nothing against Fastbridge, they're wonderful, they did not have their performance bands updated prior to the committee. They were supposed to have it at the beginning of the year. It was a little late for whatever reason on their part. So it finally kicked in with the performance badges for this year, so I corrected that data. So you might see a few discrepancies within some of the grade levels based on the norms and the criteria that they're judging against their peers. So this is the most accurate data, and like I said, as we get students who enter and things, the data shifts a little bit, but at this point, this is where we're sitting for A reading or our reading literacy. Any questions on that? Your principals are going to talk to you about their plan for each of their schools around reading because we know we have a significant gap and we want to make sure that we're closing that gap and raising our student achievement for all of our students.
What year do you think spelling tests should start?
Ooh. So none, and I say that with that phonics is the key to unlocking reading literacy around our students. So if I'm just giving a list of random 20 words like I used to get when I was in school, and I just had to memorize them and then write them on a test, if I was great at memorizing, I would do great on the spelling test. If I had dyslexia, if I was somebody who struggled with memorization, those spelling tests could be very difficult because I wasn't learning patterns of words, I was just learning how to repeat letters in a sequence, right? So what we learn now through the science of reading is that phonics instruction and phonemic awareness is really the key to unlocking literacy for all students. So it's called learning the code for reading. So when they learn the code for reading, that they can look at any word, they can decode it, they can identify vowels, they can identify digraphs and blends, and then when they get into older grades, they can start learning how to do morphology, which is the chunking of words and making each chunk have a meaning. So it's kind of along that progression. Not to say spelling lists are bad, but if spelling lists are done with a phonemic pattern, that works a lot better as students are seeing that pattern repeated in words and using that to do like vocab sorts with that phonemic chunk. That helps students understand the pattern of literacy better than just memorizing straight words. Does that make sense?
Do you love spelling words? You want spelling words? Okay.
I'm a bad speller still. I
Yes,
wondered
so,
if I was
so
trying,
yes,
you know,
the
in
reason why
preschool.
some of us are bad spellers is because we might not have been memorizers, but we could have been able to break the code of literacy through phonics instruction and understanding that phonics chunking and making sure that we could decode words and not just have to like memorize one word and then I memorize another word and there was no relationship between
So
them.
there's not really spelling tests into reading?
There is some spelling tests, but they're not the main focus and they go with the phonemic chunking of words. So maybe you'll have the same like vowel blend in a bunch of the words, so it's not necessarily just a random list of words, but there's some intentionality behind it regarding how those words were chunked within a spelling test. But really, it's the phonics blend sound, and that's what they're getting through structured literacy or reading horizons. Okay, so there are some graphs below. Just so you can see like a visual of what it looks like. This is taken from EduClimber, which I said is part of the Illuminate company, and that gives us a lot of our data around where our grade levels are. Teachers can break it down by classroom. So this is just a repeat of the data with picture form. So if you scroll down to A math, again, you'll see early math, which is number sense, which is learning their number names, making sure they can do subitizing of dots and making sure they have like subitization. That helps them with their number sense and their place value when they get older. So you'll see that once they hit grade 1, that's when A math starts, and that's a lot more of the math concepts. So as we look again, you'll see the cohort data of where they were last year, this group last year at the end of the year, and then moving into this year. And on the way right in the white is the percentage of students below grade level. So 4K, we're sitting at 45%, kindergarten 44%, grade 1, and you'll see between A reading, or the reading and the math, first grade is definitely a concern amongst all of our elementary principals because we have a huge gap that we need to close. Grade 2, we have 64%, grade 3, 53%. Grade 4, 50%, grade 5, 60%, grade 6, 39%, grade 7, 53%, grade 8, 59%, grade 9, 55%, grade 10, 48%, and grade 11, 47%. And the graphs are underneath regarding those assessments as well. Any questions on math?
Do we have this data over years? So, well, you just moved it there on me, but I was looking at sixth grade.
Yep.
Is relatively low compared to fourth, fifth. And I would assume that some of that is the teaching that occurred in fifth grade to raise the readers in sixth grade that are taking the test now?
Among other things, yes. I couldn't say specifically. I don't know exactly what has happened in the past in certain grade levels. But yes, you'll start to see trend lines within cohorts. So if you followed a cohort from first grade to fifth grade, you'll be able to see that trend line for that cohort of children. And you can kind of see then where the needs are. We know elementary is a struggle because we had a resource that did not teach any phonics. Again, no offense to that resource, but now we have a resource that does have those, or that do have the components in it. So there's many different factors that go into it.
Yeah, I guess what I was getting at is teaching teams. Do certain teams in our district move students forward farther than others?
Yeah, and I think that that depends on the resources and the support that's provided to them as well. So you could go back. So one of the things that we want to do this year is we weren't utilizing EduClimber to the highest potential because we want to see cohorts of students. Now I can go back in EduClimber and see past cohorts and kind of track them. In FastBridge it didn't. It was there and then it was gone the next year. So utilizing EduClimber is a great tool to see those cohorts. I don't think it's been done before just because we didn't pull any of our forward data into the EduClimber portion of it. And that's what we're really working on this year. So FastBridge, if I take the assessment as a third grader, it's in FastBridge. The minute I get flipped over to fourth grade, my data's gone. So you can't see like how kids have done consistently.
Oh, okay.
So we haven't had that. So that's a really good point because now with EduClimber, we can kind of track students along their cohorts and say, I want to see how they did 3 years ago. Well, I can jump back on EduClimber and find 3 years ago this group of students who are now fourth graders, where were they at first grade, and track that a little bit better. So utilizing that data to really inform our instruction, to form how our teams are doing, to form how our schools are doing, and figure out also how our resources are doing as well.
Okay.
So we have it now. I don't have past data to show you at no fault of anyone, just that we didn't always utilize the tool of EduClimber to pull that data into so we could see that tracking.
Andy, were you wanting to see those trends, or were you just hoping they were looking?
Yeah, I was wanted to see trends from past years, yes. Was that your question?
I didn't know if you meant for specific teachers, if you wanted to see that, or if you just wanted to see
Not
year to year.
specific teachers, specific teams is what I was talking about. Because I know in the middle school, you kind of have teams of teachers. And
As you look at our data across from like 4K to 11th grade, we're all pretty much in the same of 50%, right? So like looking across, now if I had a grade level that suddenly had 5% not passing, that would be something to be like, oh my gosh, like what are they doing? What is happening at this grade level? What resources are they using? We're pretty much sitting across the board within that 50% passing, 50% not, whether it's up a little bit at each grade level. So right now, I'm going to confidently say it's not our teachers. It is the fact that we didn't have a resource. It's the fact that we're not supporting, the fact that we're working on our behaviors, all those components that come into the school and into that educational environment. Based on what I'm seeing in the data, like I said, we're sitting around that 50% on all grades.
so, I know JD will relate to this. You see a lot of numbers and research on your farm, and they're always statistically significant or not. And at what point are any of these numbers statistically significant? Because you're saying 44, 60%, it's all kind of the same. And maybe it is all the same.
Well, and I think that shows in our data and that in our practices, in our resources, that we're not utilizing things, like we're not being effective within our standards as well. As teachers, we teach a lot. And really prioritizing what we need to teach. We can't teach all the standards that DPI puts out. We'll be here till students are 25, 26 years old if we're trying to cram all the standards in. So it's prioritizing those standards and making sure we're teaching to mastery and making sure that we are hitting those standards that are at the end of this grade level. They need this before going to the next class, into the next grade. So I will say statistically, when you look at grade 1, there's a significant need around first grade. But also, for me, I don't want to sit at a district that's passing 50% and failing 50%. Whether it's 60%, 40%, still not great. And I think I can say for every teacher sitting behind me and every teacher I've worked with, they don't want that either, and they're working really hard to change that data and make sure that our students can be successful. So right now, even though it's around the 50% mark, that does tell us something, that we have students who are gaining it and we have students that aren't, and how are we going to intervene for the students that aren't, or put in a resource that makes sure that 100% of our kids are proficient. So even though it doesn't like stick out, there's no statistic like anomaly, it definitely is giving me feedback and giving our teachers feedback of what we need to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
And it is one data point.
Yes,
We
that's
don't
again.
make decisions based off of just
One
this
data point.
assessment alone.
Like I said, our teachers are giving a lot of formative assessments that are showing growth. They're doing some interventions and doing some progress monitoring. We take that data as well. We look at IEP goals. So there's a lot of pieces that come into it. This is the progress monitoring and the benchmark tool that Anago has. And when the reading bill comes through, the Act 20 reading bill, that could change depending on what the state does. But it's always good to have a benchmark progress monitoring tool that we can get one piece of data in the fall, see where we are in winter, see where we are in spring, and then look spring to spring to make sure we're making that aggressive growth for all of our students. So I will call up the high school, Mr. Rogers. He's going to go through his and talk through, you've seen a lot of his data because it's grade level data, and talk through the action steps that are going to close those gaps.
Good evening. So we chose to focus on a reading SLO, so we are going to be focused on our A reading scores at the high school for all disciplinary, or for all departments, I would say. So for all disciplines, except for our math is going to be focused on a math goal, but our overall SLO is going to be focused on our A reading scores in grades 8 through 11. We do not test our seniors on there. So we want them to be, we want to decrease, or sorry, we want to decrease the percentage of students that are below grade level by 10% from our fall to our spring A reading scores. As well, I put in there as well that we are going to look at our pre-ACT data, because that is a new assessment that we've never given in the fall before, and I don't want to confuse that with the official pre-ACT secure test that we take in the spring. This is a shortened pre-ACT practice test that we have taken in the fall that gives ACT-like questions on the 4 content areas of English, math, science, not social studies, sorry. It's English, reading, math, and science. So we're going to be taking a look at that data as well. We've had Dan Valentine come in from ACT to kind of give us a basis of a overview of where that data is coming from, to learn a little bit more about the pre-ACT tests, and that's directly related to the pre-ACT secure and the ACT tests that we're going to be having students take in the spring. So we're also going to be looking at this year as kind of a baseline data to learn about how our scores are looking on the pre-ACT in the fall and where they're landing in the spring. Families have gotten an individualized report for each student mailed home to them. They maybe should get it today, but definitely this week. It was mailed last week, along with their FastBridge scores. But that percentage from 49% scoring below grade level, we want to reduce that to 39% as it's focused on our FastBridge. Questions?
How many kids take the PSAT?
The PSAT, we have single-digit numbers usually taking that.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2. Okay, thank you.
Ms. McCann.
Okay, I'm going to report about the A reading and overall SLO goal, and then Teal is going to focus on the A math, along with our staff, and then also our coaches, Jamie Kirsch, and our title teachers. We meet weekly to dig into this information, so we're have our PLCs weekly, and we have our A reading and A math. We do 2 SLOs along with the school condition SLO. And you can see that we have 47.3% that are below average, and our goal is to get to 0%. That's a big, lofty goal. So we not only kept that goal in mind, but we're also focusing on getting to half of that, and then taking a look at the winter benchmark, where are we really at, and then make some adjustments with that. With our A reading, we have 2 new ELA resources. So we have Into Reading for our 4th and 5th grade, which is along with our elementary for K3. And then we have My Perspectives, which is with our 6, 7. So that's a lot to bring in with our reading, our new curriculum, our new resources, and then continuing along with our small group instruction and interventions. We've added progress monitoring for many more students than we had done in the past, so we're excited to see how that helps us along. And then our math, we also took a look at that as well. So if you scroll down a little bit, Dustin, you can take a look at the percentages that we do have, and then our action plan for ELA. And then I'll turn it over to Teal. And if anybody has any questions about reading before I turn it over to Teal, you can ask me. So our action plan for our ELA is universal instruction. We'll provide student opportunities for small group instruction, so we're going to continue that. But also using our new resource gives us some different lenses with our vocabulary, like what Amy was talking about with the phonics, is a lot more in-depth, intentional instruction along with that. Number two, we're going to work with our coaches and administration to provide fidelity using those resources, curriculum, so going into the classroom, doing look-fors, making sure that the teachers, if they're not using something correctly, what do they need from us, or how could we help support them more? We'll have our targeted intervention groups, which we've done, but again, like I said, we are doing it much more intentionally with more progress monitoring. Number four, I talked about our weekly collaboration. For our PLCs, we do this around ELA and math weekly. And then number five, students at our grade level and advanced will also participate in book and writing clubs during WIN. So we're really trying to focus not only at students that are not proficient, but then what are we doing with our students that are proficient or advanced? How are we going to challenge them and meet their needs too? All right, next is Teal with math. Or does anybody have any questions about the reading? Sorry.
Yes, so when kids are writing,
Yeah.
What kind of stuff topics are they writing on? Where do they get their topic for what they're writing?
All of our topics right now are right from the actual chapters in the reading that they have within the resources.
Okay.
So there are a variety of topics. They're very on spot and on topic to like what students are interested in. It's really neat to walk in the classrooms and see them. Today I went in 5th grade, they were talking about different types of poems, reading poems together, large group, and then breaking them into small group. And then in 8th grade, they're talking about like different types of technology, how they're getting interactive with that, and then they're writing paragraphs and essays along with that as well.
So was the 5th grade writing poems, or were they writing about poems?
They're looking at a little bit of both right now. So that today they were really just getting into, today was their launch, so they're getting into what they're going to be focusing on for the week. So they were reading poems that were written. Some were rhyming, some were just text types of poems, and they got to investigate that a little bit more. And then as the week goes on, they will be writing some of their own.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll talk just a little bit about our math here. You can see our AMath scores there. We have our total student numbers and then the numbers of students above and below. Our percentages, 4th grade, 50% below, 5th grade, 60% below, 6th grade, 39% below, 7th grade, 53% below, for a total of 51% below, starting here in the fall. Our action plan, similar to ELA, we're going to focus and continue collaboration around our universal instruction and continue improving that, also including those opportunities for small group. We have our targeted interventions running for math as well. Grades 4 and 5 have 2 groups running intervention math and a title group, and 6 and 7 also have 2 groups running for math interventions at this time. We will continue our weekly collaboration in our PLCs around assessments. And number 4, I'll talk a little bit just about Dreambox, another resource that we're planning to use and incorporate this school year, and we have a little bit last school year as well. And that Dreambox is really to help as an extension for some of our learners. So learners are coming in at all levels, and we know that it's important to meet students where they're at, whether they're coming in below grade level or above grade level. So within our math curriculum, we're committing to some time around Dreambox where students are getting both those skills on the lower end and on the addition to the higher end so that we can push those students to the next level. Mrs. McCann's going to hand you guys some student work examples. I know that as administrators are presenting today, you guys are hearing a lot around universal instruction, small group opportunities, collaboration, weekly PLCs, gathering data around assessments. And I just wanted to make a connection for all of you today by bringing in an example of some student work and how all of those things are incorporated into it. And I'm not just speaking about this for the middle school, but this goes for our elementary schools, for our high school, and what our teachers and our teams are really working on. So that example that you have there, I won't go a ton into detail around it, but it was an activity where students had gathered a math fact, a product, an array or model that went along with that fact, and then they were tasked to write a real-world application or scenario that went along with that fact. And the purpose and the reason around that was to include an engagement strategy for students, include academic vocabulary, include our fluency for math, include models, real-world applications, and writing. So you had just asked and talked about what are students writing in school. Well, it's important that they're writing in their ELA classes, but they're also we're also incorporating writing in all of our other classes and all of our other curriculum as well. Even things like our tech ed classes have a huge writing component as well, just to continue to push that with students. But this was just one example in which teachers took a simple concept and were able to gather really good data on what students really understood about the math fact that was in front of them. And we brought that to our PLC to take a look at that data and then make some decisions around what are students missing here. And maybe it was only a couple of students, and that is where that small group piece comes in. We know to include them in a small group and get that strategy or get that learning to them, whatever it might be. And then maybe it's a larger group, and so then maybe we have to address the whole group from it. So that was just kind of one example to help connect all of those things that you guys are hearing tonight from us. Anybody questions around math or ELA or the example?
Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So our elementary team, I have to give shout outs to the principals and to all the teachers, title interventionist aides, are really working hard on being cohesive to ensure for all of our community members, no matter what elementary school you send your student to, and as they go into the middle school as a collective grade level, that we are making sure that they are all getting the high quality education. So the elementary principals are going to come up and present together because a lot of their action steps are very similar as we look at the data, because we run a lot of the same interventions to make sure that as they go into fourth grade, we don't have gaps from one elementary school to another. So a lot of shout out to the teachers that are working incredibly hard at that, and the principals will present their data as kind of a trio. Thank you.
Take this out, sorry, it might be noisy for a second. All right, good evening. All right, we have our principal team here. So a few celebrations we'd like to share first. So before the school year even started, the three of us had scheduled time in for students for interventions. We call it win time, what I need. So every student gets what they need. Similar to what middle school was doing, that's when they're writing poems and doing some other writing to enrich their learning. So at all three of our schools, we have win time. Each grade level has designated 45 minutes to work through any sort of skills that these students need. So that is a complete celebration we wanted to share. In addition, one of our district celebrations were that every student was tested in FastBridge, so we had a clear understanding of where students' learning is at. And we can celebrate that. We were able to do all the testing, and thank you, Amy, and all the title teachers. They all came into our schools. We sat in the gym. They were all tested, and students went in, went out. It was very, very streamlined at all of our schools. So those are two huge celebrations I wanted to share before we jumped into our learning today. So in addition to some things that we're doing together as principals, Tom will talk about math in just a minute, and then Donna's going to talk about ELA and our PLC process, which is very similar to what the middle school has already discussed. So back to win time, we have, each grade level has their own. We have paraprofessionals doing interventions, we have special ed teachers, we have teaching staff doing interventions, so literally everybody in our entire school is hands-on and on deck. So I would like to shout out all of our schools for that as well. So as we step into our next session here, Tom will talk about math.
Okay. All right, so are we holding off on sharing our data then for a minute? Okay. So our math, I think Ms. Stutzry mentioned our coaching support both in ELA, and we have a coaching team or intervention team in math. And I can't say enough about the coordination of the support they're providing to the classroom teachers and the weekly meetings and training, professional learning that they're receiving. It's a coordinated effort, and the time that we're meeting weekly is valuable and appreciated by the teachers. All right, so I got to get to my math sheet here. So with math, a change from last year, we bumped up our instructional minutes to 90 minutes of math. And in addition to that, so we are, our instructional resource is My Math, so that's part of the instruction. Then we are also using Dreambox. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But then our math interventionists have been working with our staff on our fluency kits that they purchased, training them on number talks and number strings and helping students using their maybe mental math to solve and organize numbers. And so that's an increase. We're hoping to see a benefit there with that emphasis in that amount of instructional time. In those weekly PLC meetings, not only are they talking about their ELA, pacing, and standards, we're also doing the same with math. I can tell you was not always the case, where there was consistency on what we're teaching in math and how we are assessing it. And with Dreambox, you may be familiar with that, but if you're not, it's an online learning platform based on math standards, and kids work through those standards. And as we learn more about Dreambox and the power behind that program, teachers are able to monitor the standards that the kids are working through. There's a goal that they work through 5 lessons a week, and we have set a goal in math on students that are accomplishing grade level standards in Dreambox. I mentioned the coaching support, and we also do small group learning and support in math, and working with Paige Richards as she coaches along and supports our math interventionists. Donna.
Hold on one second. Tom, what'd you say about weekly meetings? I missed that part.
I can answer that. So each of our buildings have weekly grade level team meetings, and our instructional coaches are part of those meetings. So last year, our teams did meet within our building once a week, but we didn't have an instructional coach helping to facilitate those meetings. So this year, that has really been very impactful, having that instructional coach present and really part of that team. Courtney Berger, you're familiar with, who is our 4K instructional coach. And this year we have Stacy Fear, who's our kindergarten first grade instructional coach. And then Trisha Willie is our 2nd and 3rd grade coach.
So all across all the schools?
Yeah, so each of those coaches go to all 3 of the buildings and attend their weekly meetings. So like North, Trisha would attend my 2nd grade and my 3rd grade, and then would go to East and West. So we have it all worked out so that they can attend all of those meetings. And then as a district, our grade levels come together once a month. So once a month, all of the grade levels meet, and they can meet with all of the 2nd grade teachers across the schools. Did that answer your question? Okay. So I wanted to elaborate a little bit more, so I'm glad that you asked that. We saw so much growth in our 4K last year with the help of our instructional coach. So with having 2 instructional coaches at our elementary, well 3, including Courtney Berger, we are really optimistic of all of the impact that that's going to make. So we know the impact that it created last year with having Courtney Berger be our instructional coach for 4K, helped with professional learning, helped with their teams, helped review data and action plan. And so our instructional coaches are really an intricate part of our progress. So we mentioned how they are part of the PLCs at each of the buildings. I wanted to talk about our action plans. So as all of you know, at the elementary, we adopted the Into Reading curriculum and resource. So that is our Tier 1 instruction. We are also utilizing Reading Horizons and Heggerty, as well as 95% and Read Live as our Tier 1. So we are utilizing some supplemental resources in the Tier 1, but then we're also adding some of those resources for a second layer. So in a classroom, if I teach kindergarten, I'm utilizing Into Reading and a portion of the Reading Horizons,
And then if they have an intervention group, they're also getting another double dose of the Reading Horizons to be able to support our students.
So the explicit phonics instruction is now coming from Reading Horizons and not into reading, or both?
So both. So the foundational literacy is coming, we're utilizing the Reading Horizons instead of the into reading foundational literacy. And then we're also using Hegarty, which is a systematic phonemic awareness program as well. So as I mentioned, the Reading Horizons and Hegarty are both Tier 2 and Tier 3 resources, as well as our Tier 1. And our interventionists, as Anita had mentioned, our interventionists, the classroom teachers are utilizing those within WIN. We have paraprofessionals who are supporting during WIN. We even have specials teachers who are supporting during WIN. It's really an all hands on deck to try and get all of our students what they need. Another portion I wanted to talk about was with our instructional coaches, all teachers will be receiving coaching cycles. So at elementary last year, we didn't have a consistent elementary literacy coach. So unfortunately, we weren't able to utilize a lot of coaching cycles. This year, every teacher will receive 2 coaching cycles. And then we are looking at weekly assessment.
Can you talk about a coaching cycle? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so currently our literacy coaches coach through a whole module. So right now our teachers are in their second module of into reading. So if a teacher is receiving coaching, they have it for the entire module. And they come into the classroom, they meet with a teacher on a weekly basis, and they have an additional coaching conversation with them on a weekly basis as well, in addition to the PLC meetings. All of our teachers are utilizing the weekly assessments, and in the PLC meetings, they are looking at the data, so they're formative data, and then the summative at the end of the module. So in the past, we didn't gather all of that data for all of our formal assessments, so we are gathering that data and really talking about it as a team, like within each of the buildings. We talked about professional learning communities with a coaching support and principals being present as well. And we're making this isn't just what North is doing, it's very consistent across all elementaries. All elementaries, all teachers, we're all hands on deck, we're all focusing on the same support, we're all making sure that we're utilizing the same resources. So I'm not using a different resource than what's offered at East or West, we're all using the same resources because we've also found that we can't look at our data the same if we're not using the same resources. Do you have any questions regarding the literacy?
I'm looking at the numbers here, and I look at 4K and K, and all 3 schools, you're down about 20 or 40%, and then in first grade, you jump up to 70. And is that a testing thing, or what is that?
Sure. I think that's really, first grade is the grade level where they're really learning a lot more as well. I know that Amy can speak a little more to that, but first grade is our target area, which it has been, and that's where our trend has been, that our students are struggling the most. So we're trying to put the most supports also in first grade.
So I just want to make sure that this is clear. It is not our kindergarten teachers. It is not our first grade teachers. What happens when you don't have strong phonemic awareness and strong phonics instruction that's explicit around some of those phonics skills, and we are in the past kind of piecemealing things together, so some got it, some didn't, but there was no mastery and there was no ensuring mastery around that. So what happens if you don't have that strong phonemic awareness and that sound and that ability to manipulate sounds with words, what happens when you get to phonics in first grade is you can't apply that to it. So because we didn't have a strong resource, they got to first grade and they tanked, honestly, because that we did not have that systematic approach to phonics and phonemic awareness. What we're hoping to see come winter and then again in spring is a sharp increase in a lot of our phonemic awareness and phonics, especially in that first grade class. So I want to make sure that this is clear. It's not kindergarten that didn't do their job. It is a system, a problem that we have now put things in place to rectify, and the hope is that at some point we don't have to do any interventions. That is always our goal. We just use interreading, we use it. If all of our kids were on grade level, that would be amazing. At this point, we have a lot of needs, so we're gonna have to do a lot of filling of skills, but at some point, we're hoping that we don't have to do that anymore. But it is not our teachers, it's not our kindergarten teachers. Our kids didn't have mastery of phonemic awareness in phonics, so when they got to first grade and their whole test is phonics, their scores look what they look like.
Okay.
So we're hoping to change that, and hoping next year we come back with those first grade scores rocking, and you can ask the question again about why are your first grade scores so good? We're gonna say because the systems and our kindergarten teachers put them in place, and now we have scores that are accurately reflecting how great our students are.
Okay, thank you. One of the things that, I don't know, when you listen to the podcasts and stuff, when they talk about 95% group integrity, is to what extent you're looking for the letter sounds, the phonemic versus phonological awareness, and to what extent are you looking at letters when you're working on the sounds? And I know they criticize that somewhat because they say, well, you're doing it all without looking at the letters. And so I don't just know, then they think that that's not as good as looking at saying the letter sound and seeing the letter at the same time, or the blends or whatever. I just want something to keep an eye on when they...
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why we're utilizing so many different supports, so that we're not just in isolation, just hearing it. They're also seeing the letters, they're also writing the letters, so that we're doing the whole approach as well. Our data is all on our separate data sheets, so each of our buildings do have grade level data separated. So if you have any questions regarding that, all of it is provided.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Let's give a hand to all of our principals for all of their hard work and their staff. Okay, moving along to item B, immunizations.
So the two attachments are communication that was sent home with our families as we are attempting to get compliance with immunizations as required by the state, and Ms. Jansen is here to speak to that if you have further questions.
Do any of the board members have questions for the two letters that, did you say they have been sent home or will be? They have been. Okay, hearing no questions, we will move on to item number 6, board action. And we will start with letter A, public forums, live streaming. I will be looking for a motion.
Danny, before we go on, can we please take a break? We're at past an hour and a half, and I need to have a break.
Okay,
So,
we will take a break at this moment, then we'll come back and pick up under board action letter number A. We'll have a recess. He asked for that, because I didn't want to.
It's the old guy break.
Yes.
Is it February? No, it's funny. It's like, it was a mind block.
Yeah.
Well, 49, whatever.
I think February was the same one that I missed, and I remember my teacher laughing and pulling me aside and saying, Jill, it's on the board. Look, and I said, I thought that was true. So I did it, and I got it.
I would have
I
looked
got
at
it.
the door. It wasn't in my room. I would have looked.
I think I learned early on, but it's not established, right? So it's not outlined as a rule. I like the spelling words currently.
It makes sense though, what she was saying, just these random, you know, you have like desk, running, calendar, I mean, nothing coordinates. So I mean, it makes sense that you have similar words to spell. And I don't know if we did when I was a kid or not, I don't remember, but we got the spelling words like on Monday, and by Friday you had a test, you know what I mean? And it was, I don't know, I don't think they point out kids as much either, you know what I mean? Like, we would almost hang them on the wall and be like, look how bad these kids did, look at this one that did excellent again, you know.
I think I like our kids because it seems to have anemic consistency and kind of emphasis.
Oh, I'm sure, yeah. It's not, I didn't mean to, I wasn't trying to point you out, but it has to be there.
Yeah, I don't know, it doesn't bother me. But I was like, because I know,
When I was doing that, I would have some. It was so hard, I mean, it is.
No, I was doing it. I didn't, he wrote a note on my paper, said he'd break it, I didn't catch it.
Hey, you notice the three old men left the building. Danny, or, he says, is this old man?
There's a faucet in there not working. Yeah. I know.
You know, I always thought those, like figuring out even to write
Good.
the motion, it was like, okay, am I sure, am I using the right numbers? Like, these are the ACH, but how did I do this last month? And I did that all the time.
like, I literally just took notes from however
It was done. Yeah, like, there's that
Is
number.
that number? That's the number?
There.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like figuring out a puzzle every day.
Some things very interesting.
So they did the best they could.
In the past, Tim was our finance from knew about reports ran too. He really
Certainly.
Right.
Absolutely. I wasn't.
Quality.
Yeah, I
Get in
think
there.
it's possible. Good.
I love it.
Glad to hear that.
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah. Of course it is. Andy,
I know that.
I was over there getting my back fixed.
Oh, I was gonna pass them out.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Is JD out there?
He just went to the,
Oh,
he talked first and then went. Those two, some of us talk. Thank you. Pretty good.
there are a couple bottles of water down here if anybody would like one. And there's more if we run out.
Trying to figure out if it's a supply issue or a board issue. But the rest of it is not. It's like
Yeah. Is your computer okay?
Fine.
Is yours okay, Bobby?
What?
Your computer?
Yeah.
Yeah? JD, you're okay with your phone?
My Wi-Fi drops out, my cell phone picks up, so
Oh, okay, good.
This is my personal computer though, so.
Mine does that frequently in my
Oh,
office.
gotcha.
Very frequently.
And Jill said she's okay?
mine does that frequently in my house. Just like,
You're good? Oh.
He's over there.
Okay, we will come back to order. All the board members are back in the room. Now we will move to letter A, public forum, live streaming. I will be looking for a motion.
I move to approve to terminate all video recordings of the Board of Education meetings to include live streaming.
Motion has been made by Dr. Bardo. Would you like to speak to your motion, please, sir?
I will speak to the motion. I basically read what was here. I didn't, and I'm sorry, Glenn. Oh, sorry, Glenn. I said it wrong. Paul. I didn't include your verbiage. I do want to be transparent and note that after the last meeting, Paul invited me to Fifth Avenue for a meal, and we actually did talk about some issues that he and I were both interested in, and we both left saying we each had a new friend. And to be transparent, I'm the one that owes him the next meal, because he said, I invited you, and now, even though I offered, he paid, so I do owe for the next time we get together. Basically, where I'm at is I want to hear what other board members have to say. I'm going to put some facts out there. There are 22 schools, or 22 school districts that are represented by CESA 9. 16 of them do not live stream and do not tape. Only 6 of us do. So we're one of 6 that still do this. Part of that is because the Wisconsin School Board Association, their lawyers have come out and said that school districts should not be taping their agendas or the meetings. I'm not sure why, but that's their recommendation. So I know that's how this got on here. But I'm interested in finding out what the other board members are feeling. And I know there are citizens who probably do need to see this. We made a move right away after I was elected to move it from Tuesdays to Mondays, because we thought we would get more parents here of athletes, because most athletic events during the winter season especially are on Tuesday nights. And so we moved it to Mondays so that hopefully we'd get more people here. But I do understand that having a system where people who can't get here have an opportunity to know what's going on. And at the same time, I know from back when I was a superintendent, everything at that time was done with paper. We didn't even have these little machines that don't like me very much, but everything was paper. All board meetings, the minutes were approved at the next meeting, so, and it's that way everywhere, where the public, if they aren't here, if they don't see the live stream, they don't even get the minutes for a month, because we approved last month's meetings tonight. So it does take a while for people to see what's going on. So with that, I've had my piece, and like I said, I want to hear what other board members are thinking.
Let me jump in here and say that this was not put on the agenda by Mrs. Ojenski. This was put on the agenda by a collaboration between she and I, and between attorneys from WASB and our own school board attorney, Mr. Dean Dietrich. Board members, if you'll remember, Mr. Dietrich stood before us several months ago. I can't remember the month that it was. And he asked us, he's not sure why that we are still recording. So Catherine, Angie, Michelle, and I went to a WASB meeting 2 weeks ago. And on a Tuesday night.
Can you tell us again what WASB?
WASB is Wisconsin Association of School Boards. Thank you, Jill. WASB stands for Wisconsin Association of School Boards. What I'm handing out to the board members, and want to come to Michelle for the record, because this is now a public record, came from Bob Butler, and he is the Associate Executive Director and Staff Counsel for WASB, our Wisconsin Association of School Boards, and their offices are in Madison. And he just sent this to me today and says there is no statutory requirement to record on video or live stream any school board meeting. The recording or live streaming of a school board meeting may be a local school district policy requirement, but it isn't required by law. It is a local policy decision to decide if the recording of meetings is desired. If the meetings are recorded, the district is required to retain those records in accordance with the district's approved record retention schedule. Generally, there is a 7-year retention period for most records when no other specific statute provides for a different time period and/or the district has not adopted a separate record retention schedule that defines a separate record retention period. There are many statutes that overlap, and they may require certain records to be kept longer than 7 years. If the district wanted to stop the practice, the following items, although not limited by enumeration, could be cited. Number 1, maintenance of the video recordings. 2, responding to public records requests, specifically reviewing the requested record to determine, for example, if any elements of the public comment period need to be redacted due to the potential disclosure of confidential personally identifiable information regarding students. And 3, as Dr. Bartos just said, encouraging people to attend the meetings in person. Now that came from Bob Butler, who is on the legal counsel for WASB, Wisconsin Association of School Boards. Barry Phobes has also made comments, and Barry Phobes is another attorney with WASB, Wisconsin Association of School Boards, in regard to school districts no longer recording, not even having a record of this. Because what happens is, and Catherine and Michelle, who is present tonight, was at the meeting, those recordings now become public record. And somebody can ask for copies of those recordings, which is fine. It's great. It's an open record. One thing that I did ask Bob, and I've asked Barry, is can the public record if they want to? Absolutely. This is an open meeting, open public meeting. Anybody can sit in the audience with a phone and record, so as long as it's not distracting or deterring away from the board members that are seated. That's with any public entity. We have our mayor sitting in the back, and he can testify to that. Any public entity, you can record. That's an open session. Closed sessions is a different story. You cannot record closed sessions. So once again, Mrs. Ojenski did not put this solely on the agenda. She and I talked about this quite a long time, and Dr. Bardo even was involved with a few of those conversations, not all. But this was put on basically from WASB's recommendation, as we have found out all of the schools that are in our CISA 9 cohort are not recording except for 6 of those schools. So we just put this on here, again, to hear what board members have to say, and we can go from this night. So please don't put the onus on the lady to my left. It's actually a collaboration of attorneys with her and myself. Anybody like to speak? JD, go ahead. I can see you getting ready.
We've been on the board now, I don't know, a long time. 7 years ago or so, whenever we first got on, when Brian was still the superintendent, guys can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they live streamed the main monthly meeting, but they recorded it and put it up in the next day or two.
You're correct.
But the committee meetings didn't get recorded
at all.
So the difference was, when we get a data report like that, it was by grade and by school. But now that the meetings are recorded, they're more general. So, and I assume that's just for student privacy, for teacher privacy. We don't want to be calling people out directly in a public forum that's on the internet. So that's one thing that weighs, the board is getting a little less direct information. And I can assume another reason why people might not want to record is probably makes the meetings more confrontational. During COVID, people will come up and if you know the internet is watching you, you're going to be more, the public comments are less pleasant. But on the other hand, I like them recorded. At Potato Harvest the other day when I couldn't come, I listened to the meeting on my headphones and it was live and I heard what you guys were talking about. So I have no problem with them being recorded and live streamed, both of them. I have no problem doing the monthly meeting recorded and the other one not. I guess I'd rather some of them be recorded. It just feels like people should be able to go watch. I'm impressed people want to bother to watch us. I know sometimes you didn't like it when we were entertaining, Danny, but I feel slightly flattered people want to watch. Or they're scared what we're going to do, but I don't.
Okay, thank you, JD. Somebody else like to speak? Andy?
I will. Yeah, I'm in favor of continuing recording. I think we had a great example tonight here. I read this email about how terrible the geometry class was, and the kids don't have any tutors, they can't contact the teacher. Amy came up, she made a nice presentation. I'm sure there's parents listening who learned something tonight, and they discovered, well, wait a minute, maybe it's not as bad as I thought. And the other thing is, the last time I looked, there's about 400 people viewing, or there's 400 views. I don't know if that's 400 people or 200 people viewing twice. But anyway, there's 400 views. And I'm just sitting here and looking at Michelle and thinking, oh, I can remember when that was Lisa Hafes. Every school board meeting came, wrote an article about the school board. You know, for a little while, when Jamie was here, we were getting great coverage. We're not getting any coverage anymore from the paper. We're gonna try and, you got the strategic planning committee. I don't know where it's going, what its recommendation is gonna be. That's yet to be determined, but let's just assume that they're saying we ought to build a new school, or we ought to run a referendum to remodel some schools or something. Well, I don't think we're gonna get much from the paper. We got 400 people watching now, and we would be talking, and we would be telling them factual information as opposed to them making stuff up. Why wouldn't we want to do that? Why wouldn't we want factual stuff like Amy was presenting here tonight? Why wouldn't we want that out there as opposed to letting rumors run wild? And I forget who said it. I think it was Paul. Anna goes pretty good at rumors.
Paul did say that.
So I'm opposed to this motion. I think, what do we have to hide? What does it hurt to live stream?
Okay. I believe Bobby wanted to say something.
I would agree with you, Andy.
You want to talk into your mic,
yeah.
please?
I would agree with you, Andy. I think that as a public elected position, we're under the scrutiny of the community anyways, and as we learned at our July meeting, rumors can easily be spread and go around. I think that's in any committee. But I do feel that there were some things that have been misconstrued, and so I think the transparency is super important in continuing the live stream or the recordings, to continue those efforts of building a better relationship with our families. So I would also highly oppose the motion on the board or on the table.
Okay. Anybody else would like to speak?
I would like to
Jill?
clarify. What I have heard so far is legal counsel, our board attorney, and then an additional presenter from WASB have made the recommendation for school boards, not specific to the Unified School District of Antigo, but school boards generally, to discontinue recording and live streaming, or did I hear that incorrectly?
You heard that correctly. Their recommendation is to discontinue both recording and live streaming and relying strictly upon the minutes that are taken by the board secretary.
Okay, so what came to mind, one of the many things that came to mind was there was a committee meeting. I think it was Jake's committee, but it was about the cameras. And discussion was auditory and visual recording and storing that data. And that within the discussion, it seemed it would be very beneficial to store or save, record audio. However, that's highly discouraged, if not against the law. So that discussion was really important because we were following legal recommendations to protect all. I think that is similar to this because I really significantly struggle with this motion. I am one that rewatches meetings. I laugh because when you look at recordings, I'm like, I was probably 2 to 4 of those views because I go back. So I really struggle. Transparency is not a word to me. It is something I value, and I think it's very important. It is very evident that our community, although we are strong and united, are quite divided as well. So to consider or think about removing access to board meetings is a big struggle for me. That said, it's also a struggle to not hear and take action on the recommendations of our board attorney. So that's a struggle. I also think too, we have business owners as board members, and like thinking about if your business is, if your attorney is recommending something, do you go against that? Like we also are running a business. So it's a hard balance because like I said, I really like the recordings. I refer to them. I think they're extremely valuable. Andy, you make a very good point about potential outcomes for the task force and getting word out. Rumors, I will say, I think my personal opinion is that rumors are present in every community. I don't think that's specific to here, but recordings and live streamings also help to clarify or debunk rumors or myths. So, all that being said, I do struggle. And I would like to find a balance or a compromise. And I guess I want to have an opportunity to allow any other comments or feedback at this point from other board members who haven't or had anything else to share.
Okay, so there's only, Catherine, one other board member that hasn't spoken yet. And if Jill, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Okay, so Catherine, if you would like to speak, now would be your opportunity. If not, we can turn it back around and any other board members can chime in, or Mrs. Oginski can chime in as well.
I would just say that I have mixed feelings about this too. I can see both sides of the argument. I completely agree with Jill that, yes, we would like to follow the recommendation of Wisconsin area school boards, but yet at the same time, I do believe that it is very important for the community to be involved, to know what is going on, to see what we all see our faces, what we all have to say. So I have mixed feelings.
Okay. Would any other board member like to speak in favor of or against? I believe like Jill and Catherine, probably we all have some mixed opinion. Andy, I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, just, I know we have opinions from lawyers, and this is our community. We're board members for our community. This has become a, kind of popular thing or an accepted thing in our community. And there's nothing against the law in recording these things, and our community likes it. So I don't put much merit in some lawyer in Madison saying, oh, you shouldn't do that. He's in Madison.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Are there any other board members who would like to say anything? Jill?
To make an amendment to the motion.
Okay, so there's an amendment Coming to the motion by Jill, I'm going to ask Michelle if she would write this amendment, because if I write this amendment, it becomes a public record, and my notes are not public record.
I move to approve to terminate all video recordings of committee meetings and discontinue live streaming of Board of Education meetings with recordings to be posted within 72 hours.
Jill, do you have that written down
Yep.
where you can hand that to? Would you happen to have 2 copies of that? Or if not, Michelle can read that as the amendment.
Okay, Jill Maddock Nelson moves to approve to terminate all video recording to committee meetings and discontinue live streaming Board of Education meetings with recording to be posted within 72 hours.
Okay, now, that amendment is on the floor. We need to vote to accept that amendment that Jill has read and Michelle has reread for us. Dr. Bardo?
I hate to say this, but I'm going to make an amendment to this amendment.
Okay.
I want it, Jill, if you can hand me, I just want to insert.
First, we have to vote on the amendment that's on the floor before we can amend the amendment.
Okay, I'll wait.
Okay? So the amendment on the floor is what Jill Maddock Nelson has presented. That is the amendment to the main motion. You don't have it in front of you anymore, do you?
No, this is a learning experience.
Can I have it? Or,
It's this one.
okay.
Didn't last long, did it?
I move to approve to terminate all video recordings and committee meetings and discontinue live streaming Board of Education meeting with recordings to be posted within 72 hours. I move to approve to terminate all video recordings and committee meetings and discontinue live streaming Board of Education meeting with recordings to be posted within 72 hours. That is the amendment that is on the floor. You will be voting to accept. Yes, sir.
I guess I gotta have you read that one more time.
Okay.
Because what I heard was that you want to discontinue recordings and the committee meetings.
I will read this again. I move to approve to terminate all video recordings and committee meetings. I'm supposed to be I'm sorry. Thank you, Andy. Move to approve to terminate all video recordings of committee meetings and discontinue live streaming Board of Education meeting with recordings to be posted within 72 hours. So no more recordings of committee meetings and discontinuing the live streaming, and the Board of Education meeting will be posted on the district's website within 72 hours. Correct, Jill?
Yes.
Does everybody understand?
So how, is it posted on the district website now, or do we just rely on YouTube?
That's a question for Mark.
Do we have to vote on the amendment first?
Yes, we have to vote on the amendment that's on the table.
We can discuss the amendment,
Yes.
and that's what JD
Okay.
is asking,
Got it.
and he wants Dustin to clarify.
So there's currently a link to the YouTube page from the website.
If YouTube dies, are we gonna lose our public records?
No, I have a copy of all of the recordings on my Google Drive.
Good for you.
JD, I want to say thank you very much for that question, because that was on my mind.
So if there's discussion, can I speak to my motion first?
Yes.
Okay, so I did go through CISA 9's website and looked up all 22 school districts. Dave is correct, there's only 6 other districts that post their meetings. So we're the minority in that, which would align with the recommendation from legal counsel, whether it is directly from our board attorney, or at the state level. So I seek to find compromise, and again, I am one that reviews meetings, probably more so committee meetings, so selfishly this would impact me in a negative way, but seeking to find a compromise and continuing transparency and involvement with the community by not limiting access. Well, also, I think this is a conversation that, again, being the minority in at least CISA 9, I didn't go into other CISAs, maybe an ongoing conversation to continue to gather information, because I think that could be valuable too. So within my 22 school district, internet searches to see how they do their board meetings, many have their Board of Ed meetings posted within, I think 24 to 48 hours is pretty typical. Out of respect for our IT, I don't know the turnaround time, I'm not IT, so I put 72 to provide some buffer, because I didn't talk to Dustin first. So that's the background on that. I went off of what other districts in our CISA, what's common practice there, while also maintaining that transparency with the Board of Ed meetings.
Can I?
Go ahead, JD.
I like this motion better than the last one. How did you, what if we just didn't live stream the committee meeting? Are you also, if we recorded that one 72 hours later, how did you pick that?
My observations, and I could be wrong, are a highlight of being able to go back, for the community being able to go back and look at meetings. It's commonly talked about public comment, so that provides the opportunity for public comment to still be accessible. And I think that committee meetings are agenda specific, or agenda item specific, so you're more, we don't, at least in my committees, I've routinely not had public participation or attendance. I think that speaks to where the interest is, which tends to be a Board of Ed meeting. So again, aligning with observations and participation, it seems that our community is most interested in Board of Ed meetings. So I think that is a compromise. It is reflecting what our legal counsel is sharing, and the state is sharing with all school boards, but also aligning to what our community is asking.
Because no action items, are any action items allowed at committee meetings right now?
No.
No. But sometimes when we debate it for a long time in committee, we rarely debate it here.
Yes.
So I guess the agenda items within committees may just a guess, be more specific to individual interests than might promote more attendance, but it's not minimizing that ability to still be able to come to meetings. It's not the same, we still have minutes, but I think that people come to Board of Ed meetings for a variety of reasons and maybe don't attend committee meetings because the agenda items are maybe less attractive.
Would anybody else like to speak? Andy, sorry.
I think those committee meetings are attractive to certain people that have a certain interest in it. And and it probably triggers some interest for the Board of Education meeting that, I saw this in committee, I want to see how they're going to vote. Whether they come to here to see that vote or are watching it online. And it's just another way of putting more information out there. And I look at my committee, Buildings and Grounds and whatever it is now. I go back to the strategic planning. We're trying to do something here. Don't we want to put as much information out as we can? Dr. Bardo, I know you said when we ran referendums in the past, there was a lack of information. And so shouldn't we be trying to do information as much as we can? And maybe next year, maybe 2 years, that's the time to stop recording committee meetings, but I don't think this is the time.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak to the motion on the floor?
I would further agree with you, Andy, that now is not the time, and that I don't see any reason for looking at how many other districts are doing that or not doing that.
because this is our community, and I feel like we really need to listen to the folks that are here. And there's 20 people here, maybe from community members. The rest is staff. But we have 400 views, whether that's 200 or 400 or 320, whatever. If there's that amount watching or checking it out at a later time, to me, that's worth it, and that public availability is worth it for me. So I would, again, be opposed to the motion on the floor.
Okay, Dr. Bardo?
I'm going to vote yes for this motion and then make a further change to it that will not affect what this does here, but will make it so that it's very obvious what I'm trying to get across. Yes, we have 200, 400, 600 views of our meetings, and that's why I believe we should continue to post them, but I don't believe that our committee meetings are really being watched by a lot of people, and it allows committee members to talk openly, and I'm going to vote yes for Jill's motion or amendment.
Okay. Catherine?
I'm going to vote yes for Jill's amendment too.
You have any discussion you want to say to that?
No.
Okay. Any other discussion on the amendment that's on the floor? No? Jill, I'm going to ask you to read your amendment, if you would, please. I don't want to mess it up.
I move to approve to terminate all video recordings of committee meetings and discontinue live streaming Board of Education meetings with recordings to be posted within 72 hours.
If you are in favor of that motion, the voting device is now open. You will vote yes. If you are opposed, you will vote no. If you want to.
This is the approval?
This is the amendment.
Okay, just to approve the amendment?
Yes, just to approve the amendment. This is not the main motion. Would anybody like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed. And we have, Dustin, I'm sorry if you can help me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in favor. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes.
And 2 opposed. The amendment carries. So now the main motion is the amended motion that was presented by Jill Maddock Nelson. Any other discussion? Dr. Bardo?
I'm going to make an amendment to this motion, and I want to be very clear. This has nothing to do with our current IT people, because they do a great job, and I have full faith in Dustin. However, I know that the fact that it will not be live streamed and that it will be recorded and then posted within 72 hours may make some people not sure that they're getting the facts. So I'm going to add one word, and that one word is unedited. And so that to discontinue live streaming Board of Education meetings with unedited recordings to be posted within 72 hours, so that our public will know that what Dustin is putting out is what happened.
Okay, can I have that motion? We have an amendment now to the motion that's on the floor, and that is move to approve to terminate all video recordings of committee meetings and discontinue live streaming Board of Education meetings with unedited recordings to be posted within 72 hours. We will direct all of our comments to the motion that is on the floor at this time. And I will open this up for discussion. Any board? Sorry, Andy? I think I should sit on the end so I can see everybody.
I don't know why you don't. Just to be clear.
Move me to the end.
When you say unedited, you mean in its entirety.
Just like it was live.
Because I know sometimes we have a 2-hour closed session, but that is still part of the meeting, and if it's in its entirety, that part of the meeting has to be included?
Yes.
Okay.
So just to be clear, on the motion on the floor, Dave?
Yeah.
If we're posting a recording within 72 hours, just help me to understand the difference.
All
of
I'm
either
saying.
doing it live or doing it 2 days later. What is the,
Well, we've already passed it to do it. We've already passed it to not have live streaming and that we were going to go to.
Not yet, that's not the main motion yet. That was
Well,
just
but that's
past the amendment, yes.
Which will become the main motion.
Yes.
Yes. So it will become the main motion, and all I'm saying is, I know we have some people who think that they will try to, that somehow the district would try to change things that were done at the meetings. And I'm saying, like I said, I have all the trust in the world in Dustin, and I know he won't do it, but I'm gonna put it in there just so the public knows it's not to be tampered with. Whatever happens at that board meeting in the future will be posted within 72 hours.
So you're asking why post but not live stream? Is that your question?
right?
Okay, so I'll speak to that because it was my amended motion that started this part. Quite honestly, I know that you shared earlier, it doesn't matter what other districts do, so I apologize when I say CC9 districts, which we're a part of, so that's where I used to look. Most, I believe, but I didn't track this offhand, of the 6 that post, even less than 6 are live streaming, so it seemed, again, I was looking for a compromise to maintain consistency. That was very consistent of posting later and not live streaming. So that was really the approach I was looking at, of assuming that that is probably part of legal counsel or recommendation, or WASB recommendations, something. So I really was looking at consistency of how are other districts doing it to meet in the middle.
Any others? Andy?
I think we live stream because Dustin is just an incredible technology person, and he can do it, and maybe other districts haven't figured out how to do it successfully. And to Bobby's comment, or I should say to Dave's comment, because you said that, Dave, that isn't gonna make all people believe it. And when Bobby says, why don't we live stream? When people are watching live stream, they really do believe that we're not tampering with it.
JD, did you have a comment?
Dustin, can you go back up there?
Please, Dustin. My southern's coming out of me.
If we do this and we go into closed session, before you would like hit pause or something, right? Because it's not recorded.
Well, technically, I'll go and change the scene in the software. That'll cut the mics and put like an overlay over the, like, what people will see on the
So
stream.
does it sit black for an hour or 2 hours?
Yeah,
or
it
whatever?
says there's a closed session or something like that, and it'll just sit like that until it's done.
But people can scroll forward to the point where it says something, I mean, you have a subtitle that says the board is now back in open session or something.
Yep. So after the meeting, you can go back and you can just get right to the end if you want to see like if there was something
So
that was voted on.
if we screw up and the computer shuts down and you have to turn it back on, and then you have to take a new video and stitch it back on there, is that no longer allowed?
Well, that would be a question. I mean, technically, we'd have to go in and edit. So, yeah, you would have to set the bounds of what editing is allowed.
Unedited.
Based on Dustin's comment, I will withdraw my motion for an amendment, since if there's difficulties that you have to, yeah, I get it. Thank you.
Unfortunately, when a motion is on the table, it doesn't belong to the motioner, it belongs to the floor. So we do have to vote on this motion, Dave. I'm so sorry.
I'll vote with Andy. How you voting, Andy?
You probably know how I'm voting no.
Okay, any other discussion on this amendment that's on the floor? Hearing no discussion, the voting device is now open. If you are in favor of the motion of adding the word unedited, you vote yes. If you are opposed, vote no. If you want to abstain, push 3. Would anybody like to change their vote? Seeing nobody move, Dustin, what is the... And everybody is against. The motion fails. So now we are back to the main motion on the floor, which is the amended motion that came from Mrs. Jill Maddox-Nelson, sorry, I'm butchering your name. The main motion now is, Jill, if you would read that motion, and then I'll ask for discussion. And if there is no discussion, we will go to a vote.
Move to approve to terminate all video recordings of committee meetings and discontinue live streaming of Board of Education meetings with recordings to be posted within 72 hours.
That is the motion on the floor. That is the main motion on the floor. Andy.
Just a point of order. My memory says that I can't make another amendment, can I? There's only 2 amendments to a motion.
You are correct. Only 2 amendments are allowed. Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Hearing no discussion, you are voting on the amendment that Jill has read. If you are in favor of that amendment, yes. If you are opposed, no. If you want to abstain, you push the number 3. The vote's now open. Would anybody like to change their vote? The vote is now closed. Dustin, would you reveal? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 in favor, 1, 2, 3 against. The motion carries. Michelle, did you catch that?
I did, thank you.
Okay. Letter B, consideration to approve Start College Now program. I will be looking for a motion, please.
Oh, sorry. I can do that motion. I move to approve the Start College Now program for applicants effective for the spring 2024 semester.
Motion has been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. Ms. Amy presented in our curriculum and instruction SPED committee. This is a yearly request that comes to us, and so the recommendation from committee was to bring it to board for approval as we've done each time.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak? Board members? Hearing no discussion, the voting device is now open. If you're in favor of the motion on the floor, vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. If you wish to abstain, you push that button.
Dustin, is it possible to make it give you the totals automatically?
I can see them on mine, like on there after the fact.
I mean, yeah, just
So you can see it right away if it's faster.
so we don't.
Actually, we can't discuss anything while there's a vote going on. I'm sorry. Would anybody like to change their vote? Okay, the vote is now closed. Dustin, would you? And the vote, motion carries. Great point, though, JD. Letter C, consideration to approve the bid from CCCP for wireless access points, WAPS. I would be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the bid for CCCP for the amount of $129,879.
Motion has been made by Catherine. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. Mr. Kautza, would you like to come tell us about this?
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay.
See the.
Not exactly sure what you'd be interested in, but this is my E-rate budget for the 2023. This started back in December of '22, actually. All the bidding and everything happens, and we have to have the bidding for E-rate up 28 days before anybody could put bids on. Bids came back in mid-January, but we can't act on it until after July 1st. With everything that's been going on with the year, I was ready to do it now instead of earlier. It didn't really matter. The access points should be coming in. They weren't being back ordered or anything like that to my knowledge yet. So you can see with the total budget of 129,875, the 155,30 is what I had left in my category 2 budget for E-rate.
Okay.
So I get to take that total off of that right away. And then I'll use the ESSER funds to spend the rest of it because they are classroom items.
All right.
Okay?
Any other questions for the item motion on the floor?
How much is each one of them individually? Just one of them?
Depending on the size, it probably anywhere from 250 to 400, 480, depending on the size. So, like the auditoriums and commons area, we use larger ones there. Instead of having a bunch of little ones, we have like 4 in the commons area, 4 in the field house, stuff like that. They have bigger units. Handle more people at the same time.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
Any other questions? All right, hearing no questions, the voting device is now open. If you are in favor of the motion on the floor, you vote yes. If you're opposed, vote no. If you wish to abstain, you vote likewise. Would anybody like to change their vote? All right, the vote is now closed, Destin, and the motion passes. Letter D, consideration to approve the bid from Alta 1-to-1 for upgrading the current security door system. And these are the fobs. I will be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the bid for Alta 1-to-1 for the amount of $109,531.50.
Motion has been made by Catherine. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Same question.
Well,
Let's talk a little bit about this.
in IT terms, the system we use now are like past archaic. They're very, very old. I think I even asked Jake at one point if he even knew when they started, and we have no idea when the first one got put in. So in the system that we're using to handle the fobs and get them set up for people is extremely difficult to use. Very limited number of people we even have working on it, not because of security, but they've figured it out. So this will get us new door systems, and it'll be 1-to-1 door systems, so that if one door controller goes out, it's only affecting that one door. Right now, we have controllers for east, west, and north, so that if that controller went out at east, nobody'd be able to get into east without a key.
Okay.
So this will simplify it, make it a little bit better, so that if one goes out, everyone can still get in the building, just a different door. Okay, and the software we use to issue the fobs will be a much easier system to do.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Hearing no questions, Dustin, the voting device is now open. If you are in favor of, yes. Opposed, no. If you wish to abstain, would anybody like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Item letter E, consideration to approve the crisis plan. I will be looking for a motion.
I move to approve the crisis plan.
Motion has been made. Jill, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, though Jake, if I get something wrong, please correct me. I was here for this part of the discussion of the committee meeting, though not actively involved. Crisis plan will remain the same with just updates to the names of individuals as contacts, correct? I'll let Jake speak on it.
Okay.
Yes, essentially that's the only changes at this point. We are working with incorporating the whole mental health side of that in there. We're working through that. We have a lot of those pieces in place, but we need to get that embedded, and throughout the school year we will get that. So it's work that's being done. We just don't have that embedded into the final copy, but we need to get this crisis plan issued as soon as possible so that we have an active document for this school year. We'll update it as we can.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the motion on the floor? Hearing no questions, the voting device is now open. If you're in favor, yes. If you're opposed, no. If you wish to abstain. Would anybody like to change their vote? The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Item letter F, first reading policy 3120, employment of professional staff. I would be looking for a motion, please.
I move to approve the first reading of policy 3120, employment of professional staff.
Motion's been made. Dr. Barta, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes. When this policy was changed, and if you're looking at the policy, board members, you'll see the third paragraph has been crossed out. Farther down on page 2, the second paragraph there, or actually a sentence, is crossed out. And way down at the bottom, there is one, see also AG 3120E, I think is what it says. Anyway, this policy was changed with those three things added back in November of 2022, and I was one of the people who voted for that. We've had legal counsel tell us that, you know, sometimes you come from the 30,000-foot level and boards have to go down to the 5,000 level, and that this change was done when the board at that time felt that we needed to be at the 5,000-foot level. And now I think we need to go back. We heard it at our board retreat and from our legal attorney that we needed to get back to 30,000. So I'm in favor of us taking out those three things and going back to the exact policy we had prior to the change in November of 2022.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? This is the first reading of this policy, so it will not go into effect until after the second reading. Andy?
Yeah, you know, part of this policy was that we would receive the redacted applications of all candidates, and which I'm not crazy about that idea, but I think I would like to receive the application of the candidate who's selected for these positions. You know, just so we have more background on who they are coming into our district, as opposed to just the simple fact that we're paying them what we're paying them.
Has that changed since your feedback in November?
Has that changed since my feedback in November?
Yeah.
Back in November, I may have said that I wanted to see the top 4, but I think I also said that I really just want to see the top 1.
Got it.
And I think back in November when we discussed this at the policy committee, I think someone brought up the idea that for teachers, maybe we would like to see more of what their credentials are. And we used to receive that. And yeah, it's not like I think I should be deciding who we're hiring for these positions or for teacher positions. Just information.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor?
Glenda, what do you think is a reasonable amount of board member knowledge on something like this?
Well, one thing is, I think you will see with the entire administrative team, we're completely transparent. I guess it's just, you know, how willing are you to pay to have copies made to present or that you trust that we've made a decision that is best for our students and our district.
Copies versus email, or are we trying to avoid email?
Email couldn't be out there in electronic form with personnel information. Just like whenever we're in closed session, we turn all the paper in and it's destroyed, because if it's emailed to the board, then it becomes a public record.
I'm just going to share that in November, I was very clear, I don't have interest in participating in the process because I trust our administration to bring forth the best recommendations. I still stand behind that. I'll note that November we had a different superintendent than we do now, but I still stand behind that regardless because we trust the people in those positions. I was part of the verbiage in this policy, again, to come to a compromise to bridge those that didn't want any involvement to some involvement for the director positions. So that I'm just sharing my feedback.
Okay, would any other board member like to speak on this who has not spoken? Wait a minute. Okay, we got board members who haven't spoken.
I have nothing to add.
Nothing to add?
I would just reiterate again that I understand the verbiage that's there and it doesn't seem harmful. It seems helpful for information purposes, but also that for the sake, I mean, I very much trust the administrative team as well. But I would again ask that we receive a staffing report, including new hires, resignations, transfers, and the details that go with that. We still have not received that. And I think I requested that in July. So just to elaborate on the whole process of staffing and hiring and so on and so forth, I would just like to have a little bit more information like Andy's requesting. I would agree. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Bardo, did you speak on this? You opened it up, sorry. Andy, go ahead.
Jill, I think you asked me if this is the same stance I had in November, and in my thought was you were asking me what we discussed in the policy committee, which was, I don't remember what month that was in, but I'd have to go back to the recording to see what I said in November.
Don't worry, I had that thought too.
Yes, yes.
I just.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? The motion on the floor is to approve the first reading of policy 3120, employment of professional staff as it's presented.
I just
Dustin?
I just feel like I should say for Angie, I'm sure she'd vote against this. She's not here though, so I guess.
Well, that is not part of the record because we can't speak on behalf of other board members, unfortunately. Dustin, the voting device is now open. If you are in favor of this, you may select yes, opposed no, or abstain. Would anybody like to change their vote? Dustin? Vote is closed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are in favor of and 2 are against. The motion carries for the first reading. Letter G, first reading policy 3130, assignment and transfer policy. I will be looking for a motion, please.
I move to approve the first reading of policy 3130, assignment and transfer policy.
Motion has been made by Dr. Bardo. Would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yes, this is a policy that was changed again in November of 28 when we were at the 5,000, and now we're trying to get back to 30, and the paragraph that was added is being eliminated. That's the only change.
Okay, discussion on the motion on the floor is to approve the first reading of policy 3130 as it is attached in front of you. Any discussion? Andy?
Same as the other motion, you know, I'd like to see, even though these are transfers, and I think I know people and what they've been doing, I would like to know their full history. And so, but I would be in agreement with Bobby that we should be seeing this in a employment
Like a monthly report.
monthly report as opposed to in this policy.
Any other discussion?
Could that come in a monthly report, or would I have to go closed session?
Thank you for asking that, because that was on my mind. When you're dealing with personnel issues, individual personnel issues, it's in a closed format. It's not in an open session.
But salaries are public record.
Salaries are public record because it's taxpayer dollars, but their resume is not public record.
Right, but the report I was looking for wouldn't include like a resume. It would just include a report that says the person, the position, the salary, maybe their education, number of years' experience. You know, so that is something that would be available for the board to see under the administrative
Well-
section of the agenda.
If I can direct you back up to the consent agenda.
Right.
Whenever you open up the new hire, the name, the position, their salary, the number of applicants that applied, their education, their years of experience, and who was on the interview team is in front of you.
Okay, I saw that, but that is new to this month.
No, that has always been on there.
Not with that detail, not with that level of detail.
I have to respectfully disagree.
Okay.
As I've been on the board, that has been something that we have seen.
With all of those columns.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm hearing you because I think what you're saying, I don't want to speak for you. I'm
That's
wondering
okay.
if the part that is being overlooked in the discussion is also internal transfers.
Correct.
That may
Because-
be where it's,
Because
Correct, I'm sorry.
there was 1 month in week in review previously where that was included one time in my experience on the board, so I've only been on the board 2.5 years. That was helpful, and it was noted one time of internal transfers from this position to this position. I'll speak to that component of saying that's helpful because of the discussion
right.
comes from the community to us, but we don't have a clue because it's not a new hire. So that
Correct.
communication
Correct.
and maybe solving the problem of the question I posed to begin with is maybe in the form of communication from the superintendent or maybe,
HR.
HR. I think that's the one component of this that wasn't touched on that you were intending to.
Completely right, Jill. Thank you for clarifying what I was trying to say.
any other discussion
And I
of a
guess,
member that hasn't spoken? I'm sorry, Andy.
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay, Andy, go ahead.
yeah, I guess, you know, as we discuss this further, I realize that if I wanted more information, that perhaps does have to be in the policy, and it would have to come in closed session. So
Right.
next time I'll be voting against that one that I just voted for.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? Let me get back to the motion on the floor is to approve the first reading of policy 3130, assignment and transfer policy as written in the attachment. No other discussion? The voting device is now open if you're in favor of that. Vote yes. If you're opposed, no. Would anybody like to change their vote? Dustin, the vote is now closed. 2, 3, 4 are in favor, and 1, 2, 3 are opposed. The motion carries for the first reading. Letter H, report of donations. I would be looking for a motion.
I move the board to accept the following donations. Carl's Transport donation of $3,214.41 and Balm Company's donation of $3,214.41, both for the Ignite staff t-shirts.
Motion has been presented by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you to the two companies for your generosity in donating to provide t-shirts for staff that were provided on the Welcome Back Day. So thank you to the two companies for those donations.
Absolutely. I remember back whenever we had the Anago Pride shirts and everybody was encouraged to wear those on Mondays several years ago. I still see some of those Anago Pride shirts around town, but these Ignite shirts is, they're really awesome to see around town as well. Any other comments? We thank those two companies as well. If you're in favor of the motion on the floor, you may vote. The voting device is now open. You may vote yes. If you're opposed, I don't know what to tell you. One more. Would anybody like to change their vote? It's hard to see. The vote is now closed, and the motion carries. Thank you very much to Carl's Transport and Vaughan Companies. Item number 7, letter A, consideration of a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to section 19.5, subsection 1 of the Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of considering letter E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business wherever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. I would be looking for a motion.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Jill. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Nope.
If we can have a roll call vote, please. Michelle?
Dr. Dave Bardot,
Yes.
Bobby Braun,
Yes.
Jill Mag-Nelson,
Yes.
Kristen Mettmiller, Andy Mary,
Yes.
Danny Pyatt,
Yes.
Angie Schreiber, J.D. Schroeder, Schrader, sorry, Catherine Solon.
Yes.
We are now in closed session. Okay, the board is now back in open session from closed session, and the board has given the administration some directives as to what they need to be doing. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion has been made by Jill. All in favor of adjournment, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye. And we are adjourned.